Namaste. So, we spoke on the first day about the nature of the crisis that we are facing today, and that's the nature at bottom of every crisis, that there is a play of two kinds of forces in conflict with each other. One is the forces that tend towards evolution, and the other, the forces that tend towards retrogression. And this itself changes as mankind evolves. So, in the course of evolution, we have reached at a point of transition, and at its bottom, this crisis is an evolutionary crisis wherein man can lend assent to the forces of ascending evolution and thereby take a leap from man to a being greater than man. Or else he can lend his assent to the forces of retrogression, which are also very active at this point of time. The mother says very, clearly in one of her later talks, the good is becoming better and evil is becoming worse, because that's the way that evolution proceeds. Even the Gita speaks about it, where that which is evil tends to enter into the denser and denser inconscient. That's how we see in Savitri, death trying to take refuge and drawing its strength from the darkest corners. But that itself is a sign that it is about to end. As he said in one of the messages, before dying, falsehood rises to its utmost swing. So, this is what we are witnessing today. The evolutionary crisis is deepening. It is creating more and more a state of almost conflict at several levels. Its result is a foregone conclusion. The reason why it is a foregone conclusion, because if we take the premise that there is a divine consciousness and this whole universe is a projection and emergence of that consciousness, then that consciousness is certainly much, much, much greater, wider, higher in every way, quantity, quality, and eventually has the hold upon the universe. And therefore, its will is bound to succeed. As the mother put it in a 1954 message, no human will can finally prevail against the divine will. Even in Savitri, so beautifully we were listening to Brother Narad, that last part, penultimate part of the prophecy. And in that, Sri Aurobindo assures us, even should a hostile force cling to its reign, yet the hour must come of the transcendent will. So people may ask at this juncture, but this has been happening all this while, so why is it that it didn't succeed earlier and cycles of creation had to go back to dissolution or pralaya? Now the reason is very simple. If the divine will were to superimpose itself with all its power and glory, then there would be no more creation itself, because it's too powerful for creation to even receive it, let alone be transformed. So, what is required is a gradual, slow preparation, and just like there is the process of rebirth through which we go back and come back, we return with the starting point is a little better in terms of consciousness, and slowly we make this ascension. So, this slow process of progression is a necessity through large spaces of time to prepare mankind to receive what it is going to at one point receive. And then there is a hastening, a quickening of all the many sides of human endeavor through which human consciousness has progressed, and a summing up and the great leap. So, this is what we are seeing today, and it's important here to understand that while we are trying to solve the problems that we are facing all the time in different ways, by falling back on the old ways, she said very clearly that the old ways are no longer going to work. Very, very categorically. And I think it's important to remind ourselves again and again, whether it be the old system of education, the old system of health, the old political system, financial system, the old way of understanding life, the old forms of relationships, they are not going to work very simply because their hour is over. And we can take one example when the thing about, when mother was asked to give a message about marriage in Auroville, and she said that its time is over. So, the institution called marriage is dismantled. So she was asked then, because people didn't understand it. They meant that, one could do anything and everything. Then she gave what is really should replace it. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo have not only said that these things are dated, but they are bringing in the new element and which should replace it. For instance, now the old social order was based on an external agency. There were people who sat together and decided in a group life, community life, or a religious life, and by the sanction of the society, by the sanction of a religion or a group life, individuals followed it. Now, this was one way that social order was maintained, but at the expense of the individual and his liberty and his growth. So, that kind of unity which superimposes itself by uniformity and by a penal code, that is not going to work any longer. So, the challenge here is neither an extreme individual revolt wherein he is disconnected with the whole world and see whose ultimate revolt can go to the extent that one revolts from creation itself and enters into a state of one's own inner freedom. Last time we were speaking about that all this crisis, the solution is to turn within and turn above to find the divine. But even this, human beings can do, many people have done till now, as a door of escape from the battle and toil and the hard effort that creation demands from us. So, the big challenge now is not just unity, not just individuality, but unity in diversity, unity in multiplicity. And this challenge cannot be so long as we remain individual egos and the group life remains a collective ego. That's how we have proceeded so far. And the adaptation has been very difficult. So, the individual ego, just as the individual ego, has to change and rediscover its true self, the self within, which is one with the divine in essence and a portion of the divine in terms of the manifestation. We are all one with the divine in essence, but when it comes to manifestation, each one of us expresses a portion of the infinity of divine consciousness. Similarly, in the group life, be it the life of a collectivity, be it the life of a nation, be it the life of a civilization or the world itself or all the creatures, we have to discover the one universal self which is behind each one. And yet it is expressing itself differently through different communities and different groups. Because right now the tussle is between one group life imposing itself on another. So this is not what is the original plan, and the moment we deviate from the original plan, it won't work out. So what is required now is individuals who are pioneers who can find this right balance between the individual and the collectivity, and this right balance cannot be found in any particular ideology, any particular religion, theology, or philosophical system of thought. It has to be found by discovering the divine within and the divine in the collectivity. So in India we have this thought of Nar, which is the human portion, and the Narayana, who is the divine immanent in man. I'm not going to the semantics of the word, that's a different thing altogether. But human consciousness is a means for the Narayana, the one who dwells within this house, to manifest itself. So the mistake that many of these older yogas made was they understood the divine beyond the manifestation in his unmanifest state. And they withdrew from the manifestation, saying that it is corrupted from the core, it is impossible to correct it because it's the result of a desire. Wherever desire sprang from, it's a moot question. But Sri Aurobindo brings back the correct understanding by explaining to us, revealing to us the purpose of the manifestation, because otherwise it's a disconnected state that we are either in this world or away from the world. To link the two is what man is meant to be. He is meant to be the bridge through which he can leap, his consciousness can leap, not only to another domain or another level or another plane, that is what we have been doing so far, but it can take a leap into another state of consciousness while still in the body. And by the pressure of this growing consciousness, the body itself will transmute. So the solution that Sri Aurobindo brings is this, very simply, that we can change any amount of human systems. We can have brainstorming sessions, we can have all kinds of debates, discussions, all kinds of things we can devise. But if man does not change, there is ultimately no hope, because in the implementation, how many times we have seen that there are good intentions, as it's very well said, the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. We have good intentions. Everybody today, will say that I have good intention. Even the man who is outrightly in the name of a religion plundering and murdering people will say it's a good intention. If you ask him, he will say, well, I want the reign of God and universal equality. So you tell him, what are you doing? No, that's the only way that humanity can become one. So it's not about being good intentioned and goodwill. It's also important, I'm not saying that it's happening always with good intention, but even in the best case scenario, what is important is to discover the divine, not just of present or the past or the future in terms of essence, but discover the divine manifestation that is going to take place in the future. That's what Sri Aurobindo brings. The solution is that not only we must discover the divine and discover a new consciousness beyond this world. In traditional yogas, people are known to dwell in status of consciousness, higher realms, in heavens, in Vaikuntha, Kailash, with their, loved deity. But to embody this consciousness here, this is the bigger challenge. Why? Because as the consciousness expands, the human body cannot contain it, because it's limited to receive a certain kind of and certain degree of vibrations. The moment it includes, it goes beyond that range, it tends to break up. Even genius, for instance, it's known that how, geniuses are sometimes called as crackpots. So the pot really cracks because they literally open to higher ranges. If we look at the action of some of the people who have ascended into a greater domain, all the social ethical standards, they are set aside because they live in a large measureless world. So that we don't want that there is a complete upsetting. But what is required is this new consciousness should be able to be bodied here, not only in terms of the human body, this is one part of the problem, but also it should be able to body itself in the form of institutions, in the form of group life. So this is what Sri Aurobindo brings as the solution, an embodiment of a new consciousness which starts with an idea force. So the first necessity is for the idea force to be accepted. So what is the idea force? That man can change, to start with. Up till now we have been told man cannot change, only his soul can find a door of exit and enter into superconscious states through what is known as samadhi. And as far as man is concerned, his bodily life, his family life, his relational life, his life in contact with the world, his nervous system, his thought, his heart, they remain the same. You can better them within a range of Satgun, Rajogun and Tamogun, the three modes of nature, but you cannot transmute it fundamentally. So the yogin used to withdraw from the world because it was very painful on one side to discover this greater consciousness, on the other side to enter into the arena of the world where there is nothing which corresponds to it. Now this is the struggle, and this is the challenging and the difficult part that all those who are called upon this path have to engage in. On one side, the discovery of greater and greater levels of consciousness. On the other side, an adaptation of the mind, bodily life, and the body itself, the nervous energies, and our group life. Therefore, it is a slow process. Very often people, want a good formula, quick formula, and very often we see that in the name of Sri Aurobindo's yoga, there are some practices which are being taught that enter into the heart and discover something or go above. These practices are well known to discover the divine. That's not the issue. That's the simpler part. To discover the divine is not difficult because there is nothing else but the divine. All that is required is to quieten this surface nature, and we'll see that there is nothing else but the divine. As the mother puts it, in peace and silence, the eternal manifests. By whatever means, and there are many means, if we quieten the restless outer activity and the inner being, we'll discover the divine because there is nothing else but the divine. The difficult and challenging part is this divine, when its splendor enters into life, in mind and body, how do they respond to it? And that's where we see the rise of resistances. So the rise of resistances and challenges in the world are because of a world yoga which is going on. That's how Sri Aurobindo puts it. So as in an individual, when the divine consciousness touches and impacts, suddenly all kinds of things begin to rise from the subconscious terrains. It's very interesting that while people follow all kinds of paths and it's perfectly fine, we see people immediately agreeing, accepting, an unquestioning acceptance of the Guru. But with Sri Aurobindo, one turns to the path and all kinds of doubts begin to arise. Now that's because these deep-seated resistances in human nature, that's what is described in the debate of love and death. So the bodily life is still largely under the influence of the inconscient. While it is easy to liberate a part of the mind, a higher mind, and receive a truth. But the moment we enter into life, into relationship, into this world, into the action of the body, there is a problem. And Sri Aurobindo beautifully explains that the problem is dual, corporeal and psychological. And while psychologically it is possible to have a change of consciousness within, the corporeal challenge, especially with regard to food and sexuality, is a real big challenge to human nature, because with food we draw from the inconscient. The moment we eat food, we draw things from the inconscient, because food is ultimately from matter. It changes into plant and then animal life, whatever way, but its roots are there from matter, which is under the field grip of inconscient. And the other is sexuality, through which we throw out the energy again back into the outwardly. So these are the two big challenges, and Sri Aurobindo has given a whole path towards navigating the challenge. But the key here is to understand that the solution that Sri Aurobindo offers to the world is not a change of formulas, whereas human being is unchanged. The focus should be change the human beings and new formulas will emerge. And they will not be formulas which are like today we practice, very hard, rigid formulas, universally applicable. It will be the emergence of the law of one's own being in the course of evolution. If we want to put a term to it, then it's a very difficult to swallow term, divine anarchy, where there is ultimate, where there is no, the structures are so flexible and plastic. If we look at the divine dealings with the world, that's why we cannot understand the divine way in the world, because we put up a standard, artificial standard by the mind. And we want the divine to conform to it under all circumstances. So we don't understand why the divine seems to be giving a very fair deal to one and very raw deal to another. He should be equal to all. By equality, that's what we mean, that he should treat everybody as equal. But that's not how the divine deals. Everybody is equal, but each one's law of evolution is different. Each one's stage of evolution is different. We can understand it with an example, that the way the mother or father deal with the child who is 2-year-old is not the same at 5-year-old, is not the same at 10-year-old, is not the same at 15, is not the same at 25, and not the same at 40. So humanity is in different stages of evolution, and that's why religion doesn't work, because religion gives a fixed code for everyone to follow. That's why ideologies don't work, because they posit an ideal in the mind but don't teach us how to really realize it in real life. So this is the challenge, and it's only possible through not just a spiritual evolution but a progressive spiritualization. This is the word Sri Aurobindo uses, of the whole race. Of course, the key is to find the divine, because all else follows after that. It's not about an intellectual discussion about the new creation. Key is to finding the divine. But as she would say, not just the divine will as it had manifested in the past, but the divine will as it is going to manifest in the future. So in the past, we had the manifestations of divine will. Often people ask, what is the difference? Buddha, Christ, Krishna, Sri Aurobindo, they all teach the same thing. Only one thing is the same thing, and that is there is the divine within. Buddha called it the permanent. Doesn't matter. Names don't matter. But the new thing that Sri Aurobindo brings it is the manifestation of the divine in earthly life, especially the physical body. So what we have to do is, on one side, the world is rushing after finding solutions at a human level for human problems. Much of it, the problem that we have created. Many of the imbalances in nature are created by us. With the advent of the mind, the mother interprets this biblical story in this way, that the way the mind has deviated from the straight and simple and direct action of the instinct in animal. In animal, they are driven by instinct, but they respond spontaneously to an inner law of being, and they don't create disturbances in nature. But man, because he has deviated from this, it was a passage. Because of the coming of the mind, he is constantly torn between the choices, between what he should do and what he should not do. And therefore, he has not discovered the law of his being. And it is important because man doesn't have a collective instinct. Each one has to individually discover it. So that's the beauty of it. But for the moment, when we pass into the mind, it seems like a fall. So she says that it is indeed a fall, because we have lost the spontaneity of the animal life, and we have not yet arrived at the intuition of the gods. So we are caught in the middle between the animal life and its spontaneity and the intuitive knowledge of the gods. So this is the passage. And for us who have seen through and understood that none of these methods are going to work, the mother says that what is the starting point of this yoga? Who are the ones who are ready to undertake the journey? Who understand that none of the human methods that we have used so far can really solve the problem of life. One sees through it and understand the limitations. And I could take countless examples, including what we are going through in the present times. Has modern medicine solved the problem? I can speak about the field. No, it has not solved the problem. With the multiplication of drugs, there is multiplication of hospitals. There is a multiplication of diseases. So there is a very interesting little exchange between Sri Aurobindo and Nirodha. Nirodha was the doctor in charge of the dispensary, and Sri Aurobindo also used the word "my doctor." He's my poet and my doctor. I mean, he's so close relationship. So Nirodha asked that, I believe the mother is planning something. He thought that she's planning a hospital. Maybe somebody may have told him. So the dream of the new millennium, because that time to have a hospital and a big nursing home was a big thing. I mean, people were treating with, registered medical practitioners in a small dispensary. But look, Sri Aurobindo's vision, how far he was saying. He said, this is not the dream of the new millennium. The dream of the new millennium will be when there are no hospitals and no doctors needed. That was the vision that he was carrying within. At that point of time, when people, bringing in medical setup with a big hospital setup was regarded as really sign of progress. So many things which we consider a sign of progress from the divine vision are not signs of progress. They are sometimes even deviating from the authentic life that human beings at some stage were leading. She describes the stage of evolution from the animal to man, and the first human beings who were still in contact with the law of the creator within them and lived with that kind of spontaneous instinct with nature. That's how they could discover herbs and all these things without going through the statistical analysis. But nevertheless, we have veered into this curve for a purpose, and we have to emerge out of it. So this is the challenge before us, on one side, to open the doors to this greater consciousness. And the process, I am sure, must have been discussed. But essentially, the process that Sri Aurobindo gives us is a threefold process. And this is to be continued together simultaneously. And there is no fixed time when we have to practice it. Sri Aurobindo's yoga is not a half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour practice, after which we just lead our life with a little bit of. It's a yoga which is world transforming yoga. So it has to go on throughout life, and the process is the same: aspiration, rejection, and surrender. What is this aspiration? Not just to discover the divine, which is of course wonderful, but to manifest the divine, to express him through mouth, through speech, through eyes, through ears, through all the senses. The senses should undergo a transmutation through the very bodily existence to manifest the divine in life. So to aspire for that. And again, when we aspire, there are things which come in the way, and that is called rejection, which is the old habits, the old way of life, the old thoughts that no, world will be the way it is because it's incorrigible. If we nurture that thought and at the same time speak of new creation, then we'll become nothing but a battlefield. So that's where these things have to be rejected, the old way of life. In classical yoga, it is called concentration and renunciation. But these terms have have developed a specific meaning. So a better word is aspiration, because aspiration is something dynamic, and rejection. So rejection is again not a rejection of something outwardly, but rejection of my dealing with life at a certain level in a certain way. That must be rejected. For instance, when we meet life and its challenge, we meet it through certain fixed opinions of the mind, through certain viewpoints, attitudes, through certain habitual reactions of life. For instance, if somebody insults, the reaction is of anger. If somebody pleases me, flatters me, the reaction is, oh, he's a wonderful person. Even if he's the worst person on earth, still it's such a wonderful person. Because somebody is flattering me. Or if a group flatters my hopes, then that is the best group. And of course, with the body, through all kinds of various conditionings. All this has to be rejected. For instance, this idea that we must die. Now it may sound very outlandish, but Sri Aurobindo is here to do outlandish things. So this idea that we must die, we must question why one should die. There are certain trees which don't die. There are certain parts which rejuvenate themselves. Salamander, for instance. How does it happen? So there is no such fixed rule about life. Life itself gives us the hints and suggestions. But over a period of time, we have gathered matter, cells are impregnated with this idea, oh, we must die, we must die. And how often we keep hearing from people, how old are you? Okay, 60, 60. Okay, so what are your post-retirement plans? Sorry, in Indian setup, now things have changed, 70, 75. But immediately, oh, you're a grandparent. Again, the idea of old age. Oh, celebrating the 80th birthday. When Nalini Das 90th birthday was being celebrated, the mother said, I want him to forget his age and be like a child, but they are hell-bent upon reminding him that he is 90-year-old. So this whole concept, this whole way of approach, and this is just one example, habit of sickness. He says sickness is a habit. How does this habit form? We go into a zone where there is sickness. Now, there are all sorts of suggestions. Oh, you ate this food, you will have a stomach upset. Oh, you went there, somebody sneezed out there, you're bound to develop a common cold or some cold. Nowadays, cold is no more common. Common or the uncommon cold. Everything is imprinted upon the cells, and this imprint has to be washed away. First by thought, which is the mediator, that there is no such absolute rule about life. It's just an unfolding of habits. And these habits are deeply ingrained. It's not that it will go in one day, but this idea must be accepted. The acceptance of the idea force that life can change, matter can change, mind can change. The first important thing is this. In traditional yoga, we go with this idea it cannot change. But we have to find the divine within. Here it not only it can change, it must change. That is the whole idea. As Shovinda puts it, there is the divine perfection within. And to contact that divine perfection, if it makes no change in our outer life, if there is no change of consciousness and its result visible in the outer life, then it is a meaningless thing. Just to believe that there is a divine perfection within and above is not enough. It must change our life. So this is the new yoga, and we see this impulse has begun to seize mankind. So world over we see this new approach towards the whole direction of yoga has turned towards how to, even people speak about, though it's still in kind of ignorant way, but people speak about changing nature. There's something very interesting. Can the brain power be increased? Yes, it can be increased. Can we learn to deal with stresses better? Yes, it can be done. Can we have a better relationship? Now people speak about, lower your expectation, learn to let go. These are all very early hints that there is a possibility that we can deal with life very differently. Is it possible to prolong youth? Yes, it's possible. We are trying ways and means which are still belonging to the domain of ignorance, but at least the aspiration has seized mankind that there must be a perfection of terrestrial life, not just individual but collective. And I think that is the sign of what things are going to be. So our entire focus should be toward the future. What will happen to the past? What will happen to the life that clings obstinately to the past way? Well, it may collapse. The mother spoke about it. She said that a time comes, for a long time there is this pressure put on humanity to change. But as I said, this pressure by the highest force, it's not like people expect that supermind should immediately change people. We can't even open to supermind. And if we were to open it, in all likelihood the fuse will be blown off. So the mother first speaks of widening. She speaks of plasticity, which is already happening. Today, we cannot live without widening our worldview. Gone are the days when my little, street and my little village and the wise old man in that village knew everything about everything. Gone are the days. Simply because now there is a needed widening. Even the physical body, by the very fact of traveling, it is assimilating different kind of force, currents, habits, and thereby it's undergoing an adaptation. Even the bursting of ozone layer, everything is eventually, it's not that this is a recommended thing, but all these things are challenging the body to evolve beyond a point, beyond the human level. So we see that widening is required, and the second thing she spoke about is plasticity. So plasticity means we should be ready for the new things. There's a very beautiful prayer that the mother would give to the children in the ashram, those who went to the ashram school. Make us the hero warriors we aspire to become. And then she said heroism is not bullying somebody outwardly. Bullying somebody is not even in heroism in the conventional sense. Heroism is to conquer the ego self. So she says, make of us the hero warriors we aspire to become. May we fight successfully the great battle of the future that is to be born against the past that seeks to resist, so that we may be ready to receive the new things that are about to manifest. So this whole thing becomes a very beautiful, in a nutshell, the idea. Make of us the hero warriors. The age of the ego is gone. Everything that pampers and panders to my ego self has to go. To serve the divine will should become the aim. And then the next is that there is a struggle going on between the future that is to be born and the past that seeks to endure. This struggle is not only collective, it is also individual. It is happening in every body, in every mind, in every heart. There is an old way of life which continues to hold us in its grip. And it's coming from everywhere. So it's no point lamenting about it. When a new creation comes, much of the old world is bound to collapse. So because it knows its end is near, it tries to resist tooth and nail and take our human mind in its grip very badly, because it knows it's going to collapse. So we don't have to be disturbed by it or worried about it. Many people become very disturbed that, oh, if there is a world war, if there is this and that. And she says very clearly that there is nothing to be afraid. Fear has no place in sadhana, and those who are turned to the yoga are being carried toward the new creation. As simple as that. This is the word of promise, this is the assurance, on which, of course, without that assurance and promise, all this idea about new creation has no meaning. Because of the divine presence, it is assured. So our focus should be toward the future, and within us we have to see what is it within me. As she says that everyone carries something of the undivine, something of the anti-divine element within us. That part with resist. A person may have a very beautiful opening in the mind, but his heart may resist. Or may have a very beautiful opening in the heart, but the mind may be full of doubts. Or he may have a very good opening in the mind and the heart, but his life may follow a totally different pattern and a very dark and path of the lower instincts. All these have to be taken into reckoning, and each one has to bear his own burden of what we call as the anti-divine, and keep on offering to the Divine Mother so that she can bring out the divine possibilities within it. Because even in the darkest corners, there lurks a seed of the divine, a possibility of the divine. How actually it is being worked out? Very beautifully, Sri Aurobindo at the beginning had explained, is there in the first 50 pages of the synthesis. He speaks about a representative humanity. This idea that there will be a large-scale conversion, suddenly all over the world there will be a, hallelujah, and everybody wakes up and says, wow, this new creation. It doesn't work out like that. No new creation works out like that. There will be groups, islands of humanity here and there who will strive, as he says, that there are people in all over the world who believe it, who want it, who aspire for it. So it is they who will come together, and it will manifest in strange ways, an awkward looking creature who is neither man nor Superman. So he'll create those kind of many intermediate, about 8 or 9 probably, but who knows, several successive abortive species will come, or subspecies, where one will find it queer, because this man no more belongs to the old social order, and the person is no more crossed over to the other side. It's a period of transition. And she said this is going to last long. And she said that, we are harassed by this thought because we have a small lifespan. We want everything to happen within our lifetime. But this requires patience, courage, endurance, and faith. This process is a long process. Sri Aurobindo has engaged us, as I say, sometimes in a 1,000-year project toward the future. And we have to move. These are first small infant steps. Every infant step is a step in that direction. So this is the coming together of the two poles of existence, hemispheres, and by their fusion, not annihilating the lower by the higher, nor escape from the lower to the higher, but by the transformation of the lower into terms of the higher. Every human activity draws itself, every human force, every human knowledge draws itself from its divine origin. And it has become a maimed replica here. For example, knowledge. Knowledge is there as a aspect of the divine, but that knowledge is based on oneness. It is not diluted by appearances. It is not. It is governed by a deep wisdom that knows for everything what is the right law. Intuitive knowledge, even more than that. That knowledge knows about the entire past, present, future as a single thread in continuity. But right now, knowledge has become gathering information, inferences, deduction, analysis, etc., which is not knowledge anymore. It is called ignorance in spiritual parlance. This ignorance must be replaced with knowledge. Instead of a knowledge based on division, it should be based on unity. Then, similarly, with love, human love has become so much so it has become a movement of ignorant movement with so much of turbidity that there are people, wise ones, who believe that if you really want to find the divine, get rid of all emotions because it will create turbulence in life. But no, if emotions are gone in life, then there is no ananda itself. They are the rasa of existence. So they have to be transmuted into true waves of divine love which uplift everything. The true emotion is that whatever it touches, it fills it with a secret joy. It uplifts everything towards the height. That is the true emotion, the divine emotion. So this human emotion has to be replaced by that. And then, of course, the life energy itself, and so on and so forth. Every aspect, every little cell has to be deprogrammed and reprogrammed. Every group has to be deprogrammed and reprogrammed. And it is done. The process is, of course, by opening to the mother. So this process is long and it has its own unexpected dangers. That is the other part. Because it's something never done before. It is the unexpected. That's why the Mother Sri Aurobindo has used the word, it is the hour of the unexpected. All our calculations don't work because a new thing is going to emerge. So what is going to save us in this journey? What is the guarantee? What is the security? And the Mother says very beautifully, that guarantee and the security is divine love. Divine love has the power to transmute even the adverse forces. Divine love has the power to transform without destruction. Up till now, the little pressure of the divine and tremendous destruction can follow. There is a very interesting story in the Ramayana where Ravana, the 10-headed mighty who had tamed even the gods, made them captive, imprisoned them. He is a Shiva Bhakta. So he goes and wants Shiva to come to his Lanka and he wants to appropriate him, become his sole possessor and custodian. Henceforth, anybody wants to meet Shiva, they have to go through Ravana. That is what he wanted. So he goes and asks Shiva to come, and Shiva is in his trance. And then Ravana starts trying to lift the Mount Kailash along with Shiva because he is capable of doing it. And then Parvati nudges him that, look here, what your Bhakta is doing. All that Shiva needs is to put a little pressure from his toe and his arms are crushed. That's the time when he has this famous Shiv's throat is born. Jata Jata, that he praises Shiva so that he releases the pressure and he can pull out his hands. So if a little pressure from, Shiva has been called as the Lord of Transformation because he destroys and new creates. He allows, he makes way for the new creation. So if a little pressure of that, and he is an aspect, can disturb the consciousness or the being, the mighty Ravana, what to speak of this tremendous consciousness, supramental, which is far greater even than the overmind gods. So we have to prepare ourselves. The mind has to prepare, heart has to prepare, life has to prepare, and body has to prepare itself. And that now we understand when we look at life from that point of view, that so all experiences are preparations. Yes. What we thought as an end is not an end. So when people are disappointed in life, they resign and they turn to God and they say, we have become spiritual. No. It is because life has not been, probably it's impacted us very badly. So we want to turn to God to seek refuge. But the real thing is to return back to life with a new poise. Every time we are disturbed, the tendency is to run away. You have a problem in a relationship, cut it. This is one of the things. Cut it, break it, destroy it, cast it aside. Every time we have a challenge, to run away. find a way, door of escape. How about returning back with a new poise? It's a challenge given to us. Every time there is something we don't understand, we have a tendency to drop it. How about finding new ways of understanding? Every time we feel that institutions are stifling to individual growth. Let's take the example of educational systems. Mind made educational systems are now hardly, or schools, they are hardly education. They become mere performance oriented places, and that's why they are breaking down. How about finding new ways and approaches to education? And so novel that they are completely freed from all the trappings, including the walls and the roofs, but a natural education that springs from life. To take an example, you can teach everything by simply, if a child has interest in athletics and running, that running involves everything: biology, physiology, physics, chemistry, geography, history, everything, anthropomorphology, sociology, everything is there within that. Confidence, courage, all the psychological qualities. That's why when sports were started in the ashram, nobody could understand the purpose, and Sri Aurobindo had to write articles. That's one of the best means to develop some of the qualities needed for the yogic path. That is the kind of plasticity we need to have. Not that, okay, let us do now, let us practice this yoga, so let us all sit together and engage in some kind of a technique or a method. How about practicing yoga on a football field? Doesn't it teach us that Hani Labho Jaya Jayo, success and failure, victory and defeat? The aim of the yogin is to take the delight of the game and not to be driven by the duality, mind-born duality of whether I won or lost. So this is how, through natural life, through organically, through all the experiences, we can learn and grow. So this is how our whole systems have to evolve and change. We are speaking about marriage. The basis of old order marriage was a social stamp. Sometimes it had a religious sanction. Marriages are made in heaven, suffered on earth endlessly. You have no choice because heaven has put you together. You can't challenge the law of heaven. But look at it, how silly it is. It's not heaven that decides marriage in this way. It is love that decides whether two people should live together or not. If love has passed away, they have a right to move. Or they have to find ways and means to augment this love. That is the real problem, and that is the solution. The solution is not that I will not change, and often I have this issue as a psychiatrist. People have a problem, they have a breakup, they want to get into another, but it doesn't work simply because I have not changed, I have not understood what is the problem. That energy of love has to change itself. So when we look at life like this and go through with open eyes, then we prepare ourselves for the new creation. The new creation is a creation of unity. It is a state in which we are constantly in a state of peace, replacing the agitation and the mad rush and the restlessness of life with a self-existent luminous peace. Not a peace of inertia, but a peace which is powerful. A peace which spontaneously understands the truth behind things. It is a peace which doesn't get disturbed because it knows God's play in creation. So while it empathizes, while it sees and feels the compassion, it doesn't rush to cut the cosmic knot because it understands that this is the process of evolution. Similarly, in the new creation, it will be based on a self-existent ananda, not the play of today I am happy, tomorrow I am sad, or every happiness I am getting two sorrows free of cost. Self-existent ananda. Why? Because the narrower we become, the more we enter into the play of happiness and sorrow, dualities. Because narrow means walls. Delight is freedom. Freedom is delight. The vaster our consciousness becomes, the more we enter into delight. So this is the law. But the more our consciousness becomes narrow, it goes to a point where it enters into the vanishing point in the inconscient. See, the degree people suffer has nothing to do with their outer, what they have in their outer life. It is a state of consciousness. If the consciousness is narrow, even if everything is there outside, we people still commit suicide. Doesn't it happen or not? There are people who are billionaires and commit suicide. They have everything in life which somebody else would covet and they commit suicide. Because the consciousness has entered into a very dark, narrow state. So this must change. The consciousness must become luminous, peaceful, delightful, vast. And then, as this consciousness will grow, we have to reject the temptation of withdrawing into the ultimate. Because if we yield to that, then it's the old yoga. One stands on the threshold, remains within the body, and let this greater consciousness dwell within the body and exercise pressure. This is how all leaps take place. And if one can do it, it's not a easy thing, because when the consciousness expands, becomes vast, is luminous, then the moment it sees the life as it is, the tendency is okay, forget it. I have a wonderful space to go. Chal Khusro ghar aapne ab rehna bhai videsh. Oh Khusro, let's go to my home. It's night here. But here the approach is, children of immortality, enter into night. This is the original reason why we have colonized matter's night. So that it can be transformed into a wonderful temple abode of the divine, which it is meant to be. So with that patience, endurance, faith, one continues within the body while the consciousness is changing. Also, we prepare the body to become a better receptacle through various means. Physical culture is one of them. Until this consciousness keeps on putting pressure and pressure on the body, till new ways it begins to transform itself. And only two examples I'll give, after which three examples, after which we'll take question and answer. One example is, I don't know, I have seen in the Indian context I can speak about, that the generation before mine used to eat very much. They could eat any amount and digest it. My own maternal uncle, a Brahmin to his name, could eat 50 puris. Wonderful human being. 50 puris with one katora of rabdi. And people keep saying that is the diabetic capital. He could digest everything, and it was not uncommon. Then, when I became a doctor, one of the complaints that mothers used to bring was, my child doesn't eat. My child doesn't eat. Something has happened to his appetite. And I would say, good sign. They wouldn't understand. Because they had seen this change. They were the ones and their parents who could eat well, very big eaters. And these children, the appetite had gone down. So I used to ask them that, is he active? Yes, he is very active, super active, hyperactive. Whole day he is hyperactive. I said, what's your problem then? Because they were drawing spontaneously energy from a different domain. I'm not saying that's the ultimate, but just one example. Second example, and this with regard to the sexuality. And automatically, when long back, there is a conversation when mother is asked that what will happen to the sexual impulse in man? How is it going to be conquered? It's the most difficult thing, rooted in the biology, rooted in the cells. Mother laughs and then he says, eventually nature will find its way. Then she hints very briefly, there are some cases of impotence which are increasing in the world. She hints at it. That after a while, the whole impulse will exhaust itself and there would be a tendency to discover a new form of relationship, not based on just a sexual interchange, but on a newer basis, on an intellectual companionship, on a deeper soul aspiration. Now, this what is happening? This is one thing, not the main thing. Physical relationship, and that is also changing towards a sublimated kind of union, not the crude animal kind which 100 years, I have seen 2 generations before or 1 generation before me, where marriages were made that now the person has grown up, and you see the entire idea of Victorian morality, because it was so much centered around man-woman differences, which may lead to an explosion. Now, a stage went through when men and women mix freely, and the next stage will be where the change will precipitate. The new right balance will be found. There will be difficulties and challenges. And the third thing, where she says, because the new creation will be a being who is not new to gender, but the way there is a gross differentiation between the masculine and feminine form. Nature is created for various purposes. That will begin to get blurred. So there will be a kind of fusion of these two types. So many of these things which are happening today, LGBT and all this we talk about, this because a new kind of discovery, man is beginning to discover a new kind of relationship, that it's not just physical, it's more psychological. There is a masculine type and a feminine type, and that need not always correspond to the body. These new thoughts are coming into this world. So these are the changes, the revolutions, the upsetting of political systems, financial systems, the need for discovering the true soul of a nation. All these things, the urge towards unity, all these are early steps of the new creation, and even the urge and the belief that human life can be prolonged, maybe 150 years. Scientific methods will be there. That will not be the ultimate answer, but it will provide a beginning. Once the human mind accepts that life can be prolonged, it will work towards it. To discover youthfulness throughout life, to discard this idea that, I am old. I am as old as I believe myself to be. So these are the new trending things which are beginning to stir the mind of man. And they are just the early hints, the whispers of the dawn. They are stirring the mind of the race and seizing the collective imagination of mankind. They are awakening in the aspiration of the human being. And all this is a sign of what the future shall be. To close with these lines of Sri Aurobindo, where he speaks of, thus shall the mass transcendent mount his throne, when darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp, as a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his own house. And that then at the end he says that God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep. He is destined to grow up because he is like that. God, immanent divine, is represented in the story of Krishna, always youthful, always wanting to break barriers and moving forward. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep, for man shall not know the coming till its hour. Who knows even in the thick of night that just the dawn is going to break? Just to witness that moment. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. The deed has been done in principle. 1962, the mother spoke of the deed is done, the deed is done. Now it has to express itself in more and more in people who are marked out for whatever reasons to be the pioneers of the new creation. But they will not be the only ones, as Brother Narad read so beautifully, that there will be more and more souls which will enter into the light. As more and more beings grow, they are force multiplier. It doesn't matter that there are, how many are there? Even if there are 100, they will multiply into 10,000 by the pressure on the earth consciousness. And this is a critical number beyond which it will just contaminate the earth. So instead of the contagion of the virus of gloom, depression, prophecies of doomsday and destruction, let us spread the vaccine of hope and positivity and the joy of a new creation. Let us live with this promise of the future and the joy of participating in this unprecedented adventure. Let our hearts be full of enthusiasm and gratitude that we belong to the dawns. We do not belong to the dawns of the past, but to the noons of the future. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Alok, for this beautiful talk and inspiration. We have several questions here.
Yes.
I may read for you. So, what is mind of light?
Oh.
What are the qualities and what can we do every day to develop it in us?
Yes. So, mind of light is differentiated, to put it in that way, as a contrast from the mind of ignorance. So, mind of ignorance, in which most human beings dwell, it moves from ignorance towards light. You know that prayer, Asadogama Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya. I remember Vladimir Ryad once very beautifully explained that, but it is also the light which is hidden inside darkness. So, but normally we move from ignorance towards knowledge. But the mind of light moves from knowledge towards greater knowledge. So already this mind is suffused with the it's still the earthly mind, which has developed through a process of evolution. But out of this earthly mind, there is created a mind which is suffused with the knowledge which is coming from above. So it is like the meeting point of the supramental light, which is developing within the earthly mind, a mind of light, because of which now creation moves from light to point of greater light. There are several analogies we can take to that extent, but the main way to develop it is by opening to the mother. The way remains the same, because we may try to open to the supramental light directly, but the conditions are not easy, and Sri Aurobindo has cautioned against it. Turning to the mother is very easy, because we begin to be molded in the consciousness of the one whom we love and open to. Second is, when we turn to the mother, vis-a-vis turning to the supramental consciousness, whatever way we can conceive it, we may run the risk of turning the supramental, which is beyond all conceptions, into a certain kind of mental conception. And that itself will be disastrous. Or if at all it was to impact, suddenly there will be no cushion and the mind may be blown up. Instead of becoming a mind of light, it may enter the field of cosmic ignorance. Sri Aurobindo describes this in Life Divine, this danger, toward the end in triple transformation. So two things which are important is, first is the psychic emergence. So that when the new light comes, we don't mix it up and confuse it and all becomes a jumble with the old. And the second is opening to the mother, through which the change begins to come. She gives us what is we are ready for, and she makes us ready for the next step. And the third is to practice wideness, equanimity, and plasticity. So whenever we are challenged, when our thought is challenged with another thought, instead of trying to oppose that, we have to find a synthesis, unifying synthesis. This should become a way of life. And the ability of the mind to become quiet at will, active at will, and quiet at will. So this is the ultimate plasticity, and for the mind to become a passive reflecting mirror of the light. So to be upturned until there comes a time when it is so much bathed in that light that it is transmuted. Just like in the old creation, in the creation of ignorance, nature brought out buddhi, or the discerning intellect, to help man journey from ignorance to knowledge. Now it has brought out the mind of light, which helps us journey from lesser light to greater light. So the fundamental ignorance is gone. So by fundamental ignorance is meant that I am just this body, I am, soul, I don't know whether there is one or not. So these are fundamental ignorance. This mind of light has the intuitive certitude that no, we are the soul. It's even before the experience. It knows that there are greater ranges of consciousness. It seeks them. It is upturned. It doesn't make the mistake of trying to analyze and doubt and find ways and means through which we can find truth through a process of analysis. It knows that is not the way. So it is the mind of light which moves from light to greater light, and in the course of time it develops capacities of intuition, inspiration, revelation, illumination, right action. All these develop subsequently, with the mind of light as the fundamental brace or the matrix for the mind to grow further into various other glories of the spirit.
Thank you. Related questions to the same, the transitional being, yes. The question from Soumya. The mother talks of intermediate being between man and Superman, and that is exactly the mind of light, is that the beginning of real change. Any light you can send on this will be appreciated.
Oh, there will be many, many, many steps. For instance, when she was asked who is a apprentice Superman, she said everybody who is trying an effort at self-mastery is an apprentice Superman. Then she gave another hint that there will be different types of approaches simultaneously. They will create many transitional beings. For example, Sri Aurobindo in a letter to Dilip Kumar Roy speaks of, at least, if I may use a scientific term, two kind of super subspecies, if you want to put it like that. Like before Homo sapiens erectus, which is what we are, there were various hominids, including Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, not yet erectus, because he was still little crouched, and the Australian man, etc., which were distinguished by the form. But here the differentiation will be first in terms of consciousness. So there is one kind of humanity which will approach through the heart. And Sri Aurobindo uses the word Homo psychicus, in whom the truth, this new creation, will manifest straight from the heart, like a blossoming of a bud into a flower. There will be another who will approach through the mind, and he uses the word Homo intellectualis, who will enter into a kind of wideness and impersonality. Of course, this at great length he has described all this in the Life Divine, that when we approach to the mind, what are the issues? When we approach to the heart, what are the issues? So depending on the first point of contact, or there are people who would just want to work for the divine. Depending on the first point of contact, we'll have several kind of intermediate species who will even possibly quarrel between themselves, because they are still beings of transition. And beings of transition are always, in a state of flux. They are in a state of quasi-imperfection, perfection, and they would take it as a resting point, and there will be fights and sometimes misunderstandings and confusions, like the Neanderthals and the other species which fought on the plains of Europe, and unfortunately Neanderthals lost. But well, that was the greater plan of things. So there will be these kind of things which will happen, which we actually notice happening. So depending on the point of approach, depending on the stage of evolution, depending on even the effort towards self-mastery, we'll have many self-species, super subspecies, who will be not man anymore, but they will not have found the truth and the true law of being for this journey. So there'll be many subspecies. Some of them will continue to progress, some will just come and go away. For example, we observe this, as I was saying, in younger generation, many of the distinctions have got blurred in their mind, because the old world and its measures have gone away, but the new has not emerged. So sometimes I use the word washout generation, or there are children who are very restless, tremendous energy, vital energy, and other forms of even new energy, but it is thrown away in roots which are like sometimes what is called as vice is abundance energy, throwing into wrong channels because the channels are not ready. So, but children are very energetic, tremendously energetic. Sometimes the thought is high climbing, but the life is maimed. So all these variations and many more are bound to come because of the impact of the new consciousness. It's impossible to speak about all of them. But some of them will continue to progress, some will be aborted. My own impression is that some of the, like people went into drugs, for example. It was because they wanted to experience alternate domains. Now this was something very new. They didn't know how to do it. So they went into drugs. But we know it is dangerous. It leads to the lower vital worlds more commonly. Everybody is not a Coleridge to write Kubla Khan. So, but it was an effort to break free from the molds of the mind. When the hippie movement started, Park Guest House, he had created in ashram mainly to accommodate the hippies. Not that the people there are, but the origin was this, that, there are people who want to break free from the mold of the mind. Even the, music which had come, when she heard a song from the Beatles, she would say, a note here, a note there. It is from the new world. She used the word barbarians of the new world. So they were definitely better than the old world with its fixed system of, institutionalized humanity as a product. To those who had broken free but yet were discovering the way of being. Now that entire movement has gone away like a washout. We don't find that kind of, but it did open a door. So there will be some generations who are washout generations who will open a new door, and later on, humanity will find its, true law of being. So plenty of them.
It's quite interesting that you answered already to the next question. Somehow they are all related, partially. If man is in transition, his new institutions also have to be in transition to remain useful. Any comments?
Yeah, very much. If I put it a bit radically, the age of institutions is over. The way our mind has conceived institutions, see how are institutions built? They are built around an idea which then the walls come later on, but institutions represents an idea. Now this idea may be very vast and supple to accommodate many diverse things, but most often or not, this idea is, for example, in the business world, it's very difficult to reconcile the competitive kind of capitalism with the corporate responsibility towards social transformation. But this is one example I am saying. So now, if an institution has to do it, it has to become very vast and supple. It's not just a question of allocating some funds for doing things, but it should be inbuilt within its system so that each and every employee, I don't want to name certain business houses which have tried it, but this is the way they will try, so that it is inwoven in the fabric of the very institution. Right now, we compartmentalize that, okay, I earn money and set aside something for charity. That's the old world. But charity begins at home. How about my own people? How they develop and grow in that sense of a joint partnership. So this is one example I am saying. Same thing with education. Education again is a division. There is a teacher and there is the taught, the student. How about the teacher teaching is learning constantly, which means the classical setting is going to go away. So what will be the format of education in the future? Not that you pick up textbooks and standard format and it is thrust upon the child to learn things, but it will be through a question and answer process which is organic and which was the original we see in the Upanishadic case, through question answers. The child is a seeker, and depending on his seeking, the line of education opens. It's not necessary that everybody knows everything, but it's important that through whatever the child has natural interest in, he discovers the all. That is the whole, I'm giving an example. So institutions have to become very supple and very vast to accommodate. And Sri Aurobindo speaks about it. So the old format, for instance, in the health, the moment you enter a hospital, you are a label, you are a disease, you are whatever, package, you are a, money-making person, you are the pharma, experimental model, 100 things. A hospital should be a healing space, not a disease curing space. So that when you come out of a hospital setting, it's not hospital actually, but a healing space. Not only you are healed largely from within with some support from outside things, but you know the way of life so that you don't fall ill. So all these changes are going to come in a big way. So I'm just saying few. But institutions as they've existed today, marriage already gone. What will take its place? People are living in. They are coming together on the basis of love. Now people may say this is very dangerous because they live together for 5 years, then they move away. Yes, of course, because it will enter into experiment. But over a period of time, right now children don't know what is love, what is infatuation, and the old people who don't know love try to tell them it is infatuation. So it's over a period of time that children will discover as generations pass by that no, this is the true energy of love. So there will be experimental methods. As I said, marriage is gone. What has taken its place? Some people may find it very difficult to understand what kind of new creation it is. But that is the path through which eventually we will discover to act based on the truth of feelings. Right now, the truth of feelings is buried deep inside. Everything else is on the surface, very smiling faces, wonderful life, oh, these are the best people in the world. But inside there is so much of... So all this will go away. New sociology will come. So right now the sociology is based on criminals and who are obeying the law. And criminals have to be dealt with according to penal code. The thought has to come that prisons have to become reformatory. Sometime back somebody wrote this. We are not treating people as criminals. But there are consciousnesses which have taken a wrong turn. And they can be changed. There should be ways and means. This concept that after 14 years or 20 years you are now out or you are hanged to death. Instead of that, you could be for life. But you could learn to grow as a human being in much better ways. So a lot of changes have to come in the legal system. Nowadays the legal system generates fear. People try to find loopholes. So how did the mother change in Auroville that taxation was voluntary? Now imagine, you don't have a fixed system. Taxation is voluntary. What is being done in the process? You are being challenged within. If you are earning more, you give more. But it is not based on a certain fixed percentage and bracket. So the whole old world is bound to collapse. Right now, because you have a fixed system, people don't consult their inner beings. They find ways and means to wriggle out, except the rigidly righteous ones. So all this will change. Free entry to countries. Right now you have, you can't be a world citizen really. So all this, people should have a right to settle into a country with which they feel more in sync with. It doesn't work out now. Still, the nationalities are decided based on your geography and maybe the skin color, not based on your psychology. Each nation has a unique psychological development and cultural beauty, its own spiritual context, and if a person feels more in sync with another nation, there should be a freedom to just join. So a lot of change which are going to come unfortunately by the power of crashing circumstances.
Thank you. There is a question from Bikini mentioned that the Superman is already here. It may be you, it may be even me, humorously.
No, Nolida said that. Yeah. Superman is already there, and there are many signs of that. This was first the mother spoke about 1969, the Superman consciousness on 1st January. So, what is the Superman? He is the intermediate, the mentor consciousness which will help mankind to navigate from his human animality to the divine humanity of the future. So, because the bodily transmutation is not going to take place, first there must be a change of consciousness, which will find the ways. It will train the body, teach the body like a mentor, benevolent mentor, which will teach the body eventually to find the way to transmute into the new race, new creation. So, that is the Superman consciousness. And then Nolida himself commented on it that he's already here around the corner. Actually, if you look at life, this kind of vastness, which she describes some of the attributes of the Superman consciousness. One of them is vastness, the other is benevolence, and the third is it's a guide. Automatically, it's a guide. So there are beings human beings, not beings of some celestial world, who experience it within. So they are not going to declare themselves. Superman is humble. To understand who the Superman is, to diagnose him clinically, there is a very beautiful essay of Sri Aurobindo on the Superman, where he speaks of two lines of evolution, the Titanic and the Godlike. For instance, the Superman, by the very fact that he has a greater consciousness, he has a greater humility. When there are people who work under him, he doesn't crush them. He ennobles them and frees them. It's amazing that how he deals with life. Whatever come to his own ken is ennobled, uplifted, sanctified, lifted to divine heights, divinized. Unlike the other line of Superman where you crush, destroy, and you become like me, what I think you must become. So the classic example people say is of the mother herself. She never, when people came, each individuality was unique and she uplifted it in its own way. No wonder we have Pavitra Da the Superman, and Dilip Kumar Roy the Superman, and Nalini Da the Superman, and Pranab Da the Superman, and Amrit Da the Superman, but all are very different. It's amazing. All are very different. And it's not that they are following the same method. So Superman is not a fixed mold. It is the evolutionary impulsion. It's a consciousness which is going to take each one according to the line of their own evolution. And it's not about doing some superhuman things like magics and miracles. That's not what it is about. It's a consciousness which, in its dealing with the earth and humanity and creatures, deals on the basis of unity. And it also guides not only the mind, but also the very physical being, how to move towards this new creation. So that's the Superman consciousness. And surely it is there. Nalnida did say it could be you or me. I think it was his humility. He was surely one of the Supermen. But we could apply it in a larger scale. It could be you or me. Yeah. Mother used the word for it, benevolent mentor. It's very benevolent, but it's a mentor consciousness. It teaches the body, the mind, the right action as it evolves. So in a subjective age of mankind, when all the outer standards are falling, it is this consciousness which will lead us towards new standards. The old moral, ethical standards have gone. She says morality uh, develops by exercising reason over our animal vital nature. That makes a man. But the Superman will go beyond the moral and the vital animal. It will find its own law of conduct in an intuition which is beyond right now the accessibility of man. So he will not act according to the strict format, but according to the law of a greater becoming that intuitive sense will reveal. So Superman is bound to create a lot of confusion among men. This also she said. So become a Superman, don't imitate one. Don't behave like one. Yeah.
There is a question from my son, somebody is writing. How to quiet the mind?
It's a very beautiful question. It's a whole. I think a basic practice should be just to observe the mind. If we can learn to, I'm now answering since he has mentioned from my son, and it applies to everybody, is to just learn to observe the mental movements, how it jumps to conclusions, how it rushes to opinions, how it enters into debates and arguments without even being sure of truth. If a debate is going on, we stop both and ask them, are you sure of the truth? We'll see the truth, that none knows the truth, but each is fighting for the truth. So, to teach and train the mind, to learn to practice quietude, to learn to observe. And one simple practice is when we meet people, instead of rushing into discussions and debates, just observe. And one will learn so much. The mind itself will begin to understand the diversity of, human consciousness. And then to practice calling down of peace, silence, all these are available, quietude above the mind, or sometimes to just sit before a lake, an ocean, or the sky, and it tends to have a quietening effect because we enter into a vastness. So, when we have a little moment, we should enter into this state of vastness. We can do it through imagination, we can do it through real images, and through practice, this begins to develop. And most importantly, not to let the mind be driven by the senses all the time. Every WhatsApp ping we don't have to check. We can set aside a time. Every knock, as he says, at the postman door, we rush. So we have to train the mind to step back. Take a time that, okay, this is the time I am going to do this. Of course, doctors can be made an exception because they have no choice but to check the WhatsApp. But we can make certain rules for discipline ourselves in a way that the mind doesn't rush at every knock. So then to step back and see how many things in which the mind is engaged which are really not of importance. They have no importance even from the temporal point of view. So by this kind of a training, by practicing inner concentration, by meditation, learning to pick up one subject and to enter into its core, a time comes when the mind falls quiet and we enter into identity with the subject. Whether the subject be divine or love or peace, anything. So these are the exercises through which the mind can enter into a state of progressive quietude. And another very simple way is mantra. Mantra has this capacity to make the cells, restless nature of the cells, to enter into a state of rhythm from where they can be taken into quietude. So mantra is a very powerful way. And of course, if one loves the divine, one can simply say, Ma, give me quietude. My mind is restless like a monkey. So all these options are there from which we can pick and choose.
Thank you. There's another question from my son. When you reach near the mother, how should you behave with her?
When you reach mother, then we don't have to worry about behavior. She's not a mother superior with a carrot and stick in the hand, and we are still trembling with it. She will punish. You have reached the fount of love. Take it like that. And when one is before love, what does one do? One has only one of the two options, the two which are together. Either you will feel an intense love, and that love will change into surrender or adoration. There is nothing else to be done. Behavior is the last thing. It doesn't matter. One doesn't have to worry. I'll tell you a small little real life incidents. Many such incidents happened in the mother's physical life. people used to go with this idea, oh, my child, he'll be disturbing, but mother would tell them to be quiet. One which I have myself heard, one lady who went with her 4-year-old, and she went to the mother, and the boy is running here and there, and she is worried and she's asking him to be quiet, this and that. And the mother suddenly took her head, the lady's head, put it on her lap and said, you leave it, I'm the mother. You don't have to worry about, I'm the mother, I'll take care. So when you go to the mother, you don't have to worry about your behavior. You have to worry about the mother's, whatever she does. I would probably just say, take all of me, reconstitute me. Different people will have different things. Of course, I understand the question may stem from one of the things that Sri Aurobindo gave as a only rule, golden rule, that always live as if you were under the eye of the Divine Mother, do nothing, try to think and feel nothing, which would not be worthy of her presence. So, this is not a moral rule where there is a stick which is controlling us. It is a subjective state in which we have to see sincerely. Am I doing something which I can do freely in front of her? Now, this is a rule which is of spiritual journey. When you are in front of her, all this will vanish. Nothing will remain except her, because it's such a beauty and wonder and love. But if we are trying to practice as if the mother is there watching over me, then all that one has to do is that whatever am I doing, I am doing. Can I do it in front of her without feeling any hesitation? Do it. No problem. See, the whole life will change. It's a rule simple in appearance, but very difficult in practice. 1,000 ways we try to hide things. But when you are physically in front of mother, then one will not do any of these things, because the presence itself is so powerful. So this rule is to ultimately lead us to a point where we are constantly conscious of the divine presence, divine mother within. Then this whole thing vanishes, because then one is moved by the mother. It's not that we decide. So we don't have to worry about it. We have to say, Mother, make me do what you want me to do. Simple.